Hey everybody, it's Amanda.
And Rick.
And it's time for our evening Bible study.
Hello, everyone.
It is evening. This is right around the time we really want to be with the Bible study, but it's probably really early to you guys.
Yeah, we've been talking, hinting with, we have a new schedule here at the house, and that we want to continue on the evening Bible studies now, but not the late evening Bible studies, because it's hard for you to just, and it's hard for me even, and I know it must be hard for the folks as well. The other night, I'm just telling a story. The other night, we were doing a Bible study. I think it was 2 nights ago, and it was late. And I used to be able to stay up all night. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, I could stay up all night. But my schedule's changed, so now I'm getting up early in the morning. So when I stay up late, it's not as fun as it used to be. It's starting to hurt. And we were doing a late night Bible study the other night. I think it was two studies ago. And I was so tired. Some of these live events, I'll watch the replay. I'm actually kind of scared to watch that replay because I know I was talking, but I don't know what I was saying. I was just so tired. You ever get, where your mind is just tired? I had a tired mind that night. And I asked you about it. I said, was it all right?
No, I think you said, I don't think I got my point across. And I said, you did eventually.
Yeah, that's what you said. Oh, yeah.
I try to be an encouraging wife,
That's one I never want to watch again. Although, sometimes they're not as rough as you think. Sometimes I'll watch the replay and I'm like, it was better than I thought it was. But that night, I felt bad because I was so tired. I couldn't get through it.
Hello, Kathy and Heather.
Yep.
I just got the chat up. The chat wasn't working for us, but here we go.
So all that just to say this, and you've already brought it up, that when all this gets straightened out, settled, this is right about the time we would like to probably do the live events. As with summertime, I mean, we're looking out a window and I actually see trees. Lately, it's been all pitch black dark. So
yeah. Hello, Pink is here. All right. She probably enjoys the earlier hour too. So we are in Deuteronomy 23, and as promised yesterday, it's an awkward study today. Just prepare yourselves.
Well, I mean,
just prepare yourselves.
Yesterday it was awkward.
Yeah, it's been awkward for many days, but today I feel is especially awkward. You know what I feel like this is like? I feel like, we're parents. And as parents, sometimes you have to have conversations with your children that you really don't want to have. You don't want to have them, but you're the parent and you got to have them, right? And this is like that. Like the Lord gave us this job to go through the Bible online. And it's like, Lord, do we got to have these conversations? And he's like, yeah, it's in my word, isn't it? And it's like, okay, so this is what we're doing today. It's braced for. Thank you. Please be braced. So, Deuteronomy 23, we're starting at verse 9. We're going to, hopefully, Lord willing, go through the end of the chapter. Not all of it is awkward, but part of it is. Maybe obviously right at the beginning, because that's where it's usually got to be. Maybe
we should do the disclaimer like we did yesterday.
If you have children, please. This is something you want to be aware that maybe it's just for adults.
I mean, it's not necessarily like children can't hear. I mean, it
use
is
your
the
discretion.
Word of God, but little kids and all. So
this might not be appropriate for them. So. Okay, well, Deuteronomy 23, we're going to start at verse 9. I'm going to read through the end of the chapter, and then we'll talk about it. So it says, when the host goeth forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. If there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chanceth him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. But it shall be when evening cometh on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad, and thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon. And it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. For the Lord thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his master unto thee. He shall dwell with thee even among you in that place which he shall choose in one of thy gates, where it liketh him best, and thou shalt not oppress him. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord thy God for any vow, for even both of these are abomination unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy God, thou shalt not slack to pay for it, for the Lord thy God will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a freewill offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. When thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, thou mayest eat grapes, thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor, thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. Alrighty. I hope you guys were prepared. So, starting in verse 9, I'm going to give you a little preface. Verses 9 to 14 is talking about their behavior when they are encamped against an enemy. Okay. And this is how I want to preface this. I think we in modern times, after many, many years of civilization, take for granted hygiene. Like we understand things like washing your hands, right? A lot of talk about that in 2020, 2021. But you understand that 150 years ago, that wasn't a normal practice. You know what I mean? That people didn't really understand hygienic things. But particularly when it comes to hygiene in wartime, I mean, that is something that I think if you've read any kind of history, you understand that when people are at war, hygiene is a problem. In like
because people get distracted, I think, and
yes,
people, frankly, I think get to the point they don't care because they're at war, kind of thing. So,
but there's a lot of things people didn't understand. So I had heard this story about during the Revolutionary War, the Americans were losing, and one of the reasons why they were losing was that they didn't have any order. They didn't have a real army. It was just a bunch of militias that they were kind of banding together, and they didn't have any order. And one of the reasons they were able to win the Revolutionary War was there's this German, I don't know what his rank was. I don't know if he was a general, but he had some kind of ranking in the military. His last name was von Steuben. And he wrote a manual on military order, right? And so one of the things that he wrote about was about hygiene in the camp. Like apparently in the Revolutionary War times, they had their toilets where their kitchen was. And it was very unhygienic. And it's shocking to us now that people would do that. But to them, it was convenience. And even now, if you go to the mall, you have the mall where people are eating, and then you have the restrooms right next to it, right? So there's a convenience issue, but they didn't realize in a more primitive setting that is absolutely you need to walk the distance if you have to deal with bathroom things. So, but the idea is that hygiene, I think we take for granted now, but the Lord was starting with people who'd been slaves. They'd been enslaved. They'd been in the wilderness for a really long time. And so like when we were reading in Leviticus, we were talking about Leviticus being God's health book. The Lord really was kind of starting with scratch with people, that the whole communities that were even around them, they didn't practice great hygiene either. So the Lord was starting in a place where he was like, okay, I want my people to be clean. I want my people to be healthy. And these are the standards you're going to use to be clean and healthy. So this particular section, he is specifically talking about when they are encamped, very similar to what von Steuben did in the Revolutionary War times. But the Lord here is addressing a couple of particular issues that needed to be addressed. So the first thing he says in verse 9 is, when you go forth against your enemies, keep from every wicked thing. And I mean, I think it's something that I've heard about. People make jokes about like Navy officers in port go wild. You know what I mean? I grew up in a town that had a naval base on it. So I don't know if everybody necessarily knows that, but I've always heard the stories like Navy guys, you know, they get to a port and then they just go nuts wherever they are because they're on a break, and then they get back on the ship and then they have order on the ship. And so one of the things, like, you know, when you're out doing this, you know, stay away from wicked things. Don't get to a place where you just start to go wild because you're in the middle of this battle and this wartime. Don't think that means all bets are off. You still have to be a responsible, decent human being, even if you are in a battle. Like you still have to keep a hold of yourself and what you're doing. Do you want to say anything about that before I move forward?
Yes. And it's this. That's my pause. Okay, wartime. And it says, keep thee from every wicked thing. Like we've said before, there are believers. Sometimes there are people that come on to the live chats here. Not the regular folks. Sometimes it's someone new. And they'll come on and they'll start talking about once you're a believer, you can kind of live any way you want to. And that's false. I mean, the more you study the Word of God, you see that you, as a believer, you cannot live the way you want to. Maybe when you were lost, you lived the way you wanted to.
Didn't do you any good.
As far as the flesh goes. But now that you're a believer, the Lord expects you to live like he wants you to live. Okay? And it says to keep thee from every wicked thing. And it's talking about war times. Well, the point that I try to make often is that every day we're in a war. We're in a spiritual battle against our flesh, against Satan, a spiritual battle for the souls of lost people in the ministry, trying to encourage Christians and lead people to Jesus Christ. And the Bible says to keep thee from every wicked thing. And we should apply that for today, in 2021, that as a believer living today, I need to live right. I can't live like the devil and tell people they need Christ. I lose my testimony there. No credibility, no integrity. You have to live right if you're going to tell people about Christ. You have to live right if you're going to encourage Christians who are not living right to live right. You follow? Because it's the case of the old beam in the moat. And you don't want to start trying to take specks out of people's eyes when you got a 2x4 in yours. So keep thee from every wicked thing. Okay, live right as you fight this spiritual battle and tell people about Christ.
All right, so verse 10 is the one I've been dreading, guys. Verse 10.
Before you even jump into it,
do it. Do whatever you want.
I'm just saying this. I honestly think that we can just talk about this in a very practical way.
That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, because you already set the groundwork or the foundation that this is for hygiene.
It is.
And I think most people today, with any sense at all, coming out of 2020, 2021, we all have been revived when it comes to common sense with good hygiene.
With hygiene, I know.
Okay? I mean, you can't go into a store now without seeing
Hygiene being
sanitizers
concerned.
and alcohol wipes, and people are still spraying the carts and all kinds of stuff. So continue on with the hygiene.
Okay. So the thing about it is, if you think about all of the things that the Lord talked about being unhygienic, one of them was blood, right? And then we're going to talk about bathroom things in a minute. Don't think we're getting out of that. That's also
the
an
awkward one for me.
I know.
We don't discuss bathroom stuff in the Beal household.
No, we don't. But then
that's my little
rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also anything that has to do with sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
Because the bodily fluids that are exchanged have they can be contaminated. You can spread disease that
Sickness,
way. Yeah. So anytime, even like when you worked at Walmart, if there was any kind of like blood spill or like little children went to the bathroom on the floor, you had a bodily fluid kit that you had at Walmart because any kind of bodily fluids got on the floor or anything, they had to put on gloves and they had to like spray with bleach. Like there was this whole system that they had to do to make sure that no one was going to get sick or be contaminated from bodily fluids.
And the thing is that people go extreme now trying to protect themselves. I mean, they'll put on the rubber gloves and the mask and everything and the little smock thing.
Yeah.
Just to take care of just a little bit of bodily fluid or blood or something. Because you know why? Because people know better. But again, you pointed out this was the nation of Israel. This was years and years and years and years and years and years and years ago, before people knew necessarily in mass that there was a problem here or something to be warned of, something to be concerned about. So the Lord is
spelling it out for them.
Yes.
All right. So verse 10 says, if there be among you any man who is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chances him at night. So for instance, he's sleeping in bed and all of a sudden there's a bodily fluid issue that sometimes happens that they can't help. It just happens. It says, then he shall go abroad out of the camp and he shall not come back within the camp. But it shall be when evening cometh, he'll wash himself with water. And when the sun is down, then he can go back and camp again. So the idea is he has to wash himself off. It can't just be something like, oh, this happened, oh, well, and just go back to sleep, which I know, again, we probably would think, oh, that doesn't sound like it makes good sense. But no, probably people would have done that if they weren't thinking about it and just think, whatever, things happen, go back to sleep. No, they have to literally leave the camp and clean themselves, and then they can come back in. And again, that's just because you want to make sure that nobody is going to be contaminated with any bodily fluids that are out within the camp. In like manner, verse 12, thou shalt have a place without the camp, so outside of the camp, this has to do with the bathroom things, that you go forth abroad. So this is exactly what I was talking about with von Steuben and the latrines and the kitchen.
Yeah, it could not be further away, far enough away from me.
You have to get it out of the camp.
I said, maybe a little further, guys.
You're going abroad. Well, if you had to go, you wouldn't want it too far. But it still has to be out of the camp.
For me.
And they have to go abroad. And also it says you'll have a paddle with your weapon. So they have to have a shovel in addition to their weapon that they're issued, right? And when they it says that the way the King James words
it's kind of like, I almost want to say it's kind of like camping in a way.
Yes, it is camping.
Yeah, I know.
That's why it's called they're in camp.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, yeah.
But it says, it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself. So when you use the restroom,
that's enough.
You have to dig and then cover it up. That's what they had to do, which, again, people probably wouldn't necessarily do that if they were in a rush, if, they were in camp. I don't want to talk about this too much, but we're from Maryland. And I can't say all of the state of Maryland. We're from a part of Maryland that's suburban, but people aren't particularly country where we were from. You know what I mean? I think things are very politically correct. People just don't do things.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we moved to North Carolina,
Be nice about North Carolina, though.
we're in a rural part of North Carolina. So it's not,
We are.
I can't speak for the whole state, but where we are, it was a little bit surprising how very free people are about like bathroom things. Cause we have boys and
Well, yeah, you're right about that.
we would be out, you know, with people and somebody would have to go to the bathroom and people would be like, I'll just go over to the woods, you know, which some people might not think that's a big deal. But to us, it was like, are you kidding? Go to the woods.
Sounds like a setup.
What? No. You can't go in the woods. What are you talking about? So anyway, but here people do that and they don't think, because I mean we're out in the woods, nobody thinks anything of it. Brianna has friends that want to take her camping.
Excuse me.
They were talking about going hiking. I heard some friends of hers, and she was like, well, like, what are we supposed to do about a bathroom? And they're like, you can just go in the woods. And Brianna was like, what? I'm not going to no woods. You tell the Beals are really made for the wilderness, right? So, but anyway,
I'm not saying nothing.
My point is that I totally understand that for these folks who'd been in the wilderness for years, they wouldn't have thought anything of it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, just go in the woods, whatever. You know, it's no big deal. We also have friends who are missionaries in Ivory Coast. They grew up there, and they were telling us about you fly into the capital city. I forget what it's called right now, but anyway, she said you fly into the capital city, and it's like a 6-hour drive from the capital city to where they are. And they were like, it's a long bus ride, bumpy roads, and they were like, there's no bathrooms on the way, but they'll stop periodically, and there's fields on either side. And they said one side is the men's side and the other side is the ladies' side. And you just go in the field. And that's it. And they're like, if you're a lady, wear a long dress or a skirt because the grass isn't very tall. People see things. So it's just like, but again.
You're right. This one is awkward.
People, it depends on what you're used to.
No,
that was kind of my whole point. Like to us, this seems kind of like, well, why do you even need to say that? But different people in different places might not think this is a big deal. So
I get
for the Lord to say,
you're right,
you need a shovel and go bury it and cover it up, that might seem like an extreme thing to ask. You know what I mean? Like you saying towels on the floor. Like it might seem extreme.
Well, the towels make good sense.
Well, so does digging a hole. but people might think it's extreme.
The cats know about it.
Yeah, I know. There's probably a lot of holes, but at least they were covered. Imagine how much worse it would be if they didn't dig the hole. It would be everywhere. But they even say he even said the Lord walketh. I'm
bashful. You know, I
he doesn't even like talking about it.
I know. I said, don't look at me while I'm digging my hole.
You got to go out of the camp.
I know.
So it says the Lord walked in the midst of the camp.
Awkward.
To deliver thee and to give thine enemies before thee. And therefore, because the Lord's going to be there, the camp shall be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee and turn away from thee. So the idea is kind of like your reaction. If the Lord saw uncleanness, you'd just be like, I ain't gonna walk here. He's out. You know what I mean? They're on their own. So, I mean, this is a very specific, I mean, I'm not being like exaggerated. That's what it says. He's going to turn away from them if he sees mess in that camp. So that to me seems like a very dad thing. Like if I see mess in here, I'm gone. At least, you know, since Rick is the dad of this house, that's what it makes me think of. But anyway, so all of this whole section is just about hygiene in the camp. Keeping it clean, keeping yourself clean, don't get involved in wicked things, and making sure the bathroom stuff was taken care of.
You know, there's a neat little application that you can talk about with verse 14.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, for the Lord thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp, right? Mm-hmm. And it says, let me see. Therefore shall thy camp be holy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's looking at it. That he see no unclean thing in thee and turn away from thee. Mm-hmm. So the Lord is going to walk through the camp. Is he going to see it clean, or he's going to turn away? I was just thinking of this. I mean, what about our homes?
Oh, that's true.
Are our homes physically clean, but spiritually clean too? I mean, if he enters your home, the Lord, he'd love a clean house, but he really cares about a clean heart.
Yes.
When he looks at you, if he was to come over your house tonight, is he going to see a joyful, God-fearing, God-loving heart? That just loves his word and loves souls and loves him. And are we the Christians that we're supposed to be? If the Lord, if he came to your house tonight, would he find it clean? If he came to your church tomorrow, would he find it clean? I'm not talking about the carpets and the pews. The Christians at the church, do they get along? There's a lot of churches that deal with bitterness and all kinds of things, and one group talking about the other group.
They need to dig a hole and bury it.
I mean, it's a church, but it seems like a fraternity house sometimes, And I hear about it. We were members of a church that kind of behaved that way for a while, years ago. So I mean, if he entered your church tomorrow, would he find it clean spiritually? A bunch of joyful people that love the Lord, they love his word, they love souls, and they're thankful and God-fearing and God-praising people. Would he find us spiritually clean? Just a thought.
Okay, so verse 15 and 16 says, "Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his master unto thee. He shall dwell with thee, even among you, in that place which he shall choose in one of thy gates, where it liketh him best, thou shalt not oppress him." So the idea is, if there is a slave and he runs away from his master, then they cannot send him back. So which I think is really interesting law, because I think it speaks to God's heart toward people. The idea that if they're going to run away, then things must be really bad. You know what I mean? If they would risk everything to run away. So if that happens, then you don't send him back. You know what I mean? So this also, the idea of other soldiers or people from other countries who run and try to escape, kind of like refugees. That's the word I was thinking of. If they come into the country and they want to be part of the Israelites, you don't have to return them to their masters there either. They can stay with you, and it says they can even go where they choose, but they can't oppress him just because he was someone else's slave. They still have to care for him and treat him decently. So, I think this goes to just making sure people were treated kindly, no matter what their station was. You know what I mean? We've talked before about how it's not a perfect parallel by any means, but just trying to relate that idea to modern times where we don't have slavery, but just trying to find a relationship, the idea of someone who is working for someone else. If someone comes and works for you and they left another job, they're coming to you, even if they suffered there, you should treat them well. You know what I mean? Just you can't take advantage of people. It's the takeaway to me, because I want to relate it to something that's relevant to us today. That a lot of people like talking about the idea of refugees. They're trying to escape difficulty. If they come to you, then you should be able to help them and not oppress them and be an encouragement to them.
Okay. We can continue. I like what you said, and that's good.
Okay. Well, going into another difficult topic. Verse 17, I hope you got something to say about this. Don't leave it all on me. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord thy God for any vow, for even both of these are an abomination unto the Lord thy God. So basically, the idea is that there couldn't be prostitute. When it's talking about there should be no whore of the daughters of Israel, you understand that, nor sodomite of the sons of Israel. So that's basically female and male prostitutes. The children of Israel could not prostitute themselves. And then in addition to that, they couldn't think that they were going to be okay to just bring their money that they had used from their prostitution into the temple or the tabernacle, and then it was going to be okay. No, it says you can't. In the King James says the hire of a whore, the price of a dog. Either it's the money made by a female prostitute or the money made by a male prostitute. Either one. You can't bring that into the house of the Lord for a vow or for any kind of offering. It says those are abomination unto the Lord. He doesn't want money made from that. And again, I think you can totally understand. Like, I mean, knowing God's heart and that he loves his people, you can understand why he wouldn't want his children to prostitute themselves. You know, no good parent, I think, wants that for their children.
Right.
So I think that's perfectly reasonable. And then if they did go and do something like that and tried to show me money, like that made it okay, that would not be okay. That wouldn't impress me at all. You know, I do feel like this is in our modern culture today, we've kind of gone backwards in our thinking about this, because I really feel like people think that a lot of what people do willing to be involved in the sex industry, their whole reason why they think it's okay is the money. You know, I've heard so many women say things to the effect. I used to live in Las Vegas. You know, I've heard people in the sex industry, they'll often say things like, nothing's too good for my babies. Like the idea that they have children, they want to take care of their children, so they'll degrade themselves in any way that they need to make sure that their children are taken care of, as though that makes the money makes it okay. And I got to be honest with you, I feel like we really have to understand that there are things that are more valuable and more important than money. And honestly, a person could, you know, we've lived off of very little income for a lot of years, and who have really struggled for obvious reasons with that. And thankfully, many of them have even come to the Lord. But I haven't, obviously, I don't know very much about men. I haven't really dealt with too many men involved in that. But obviously they're out there. You know, obviously there are men that do that. And I imagine, frankly, I've never heard of any ministry towards men in that industry. But there should be, because it's so sad that our world has come to the point where people are encouraged to do that for the sake of money. You know, even things that people do online. You know, a lot of kids these days, they don't even have to, you know, go prostitute themselves or work in a strip club. I mean, they're prostituting themselves online in certain ways. But they have like these, I think the thing is called like OnlyFans or something, where they like have online things and they do things online for money. And it's really sad. It is, because you guys, I'm sure you guys know, Brianna has a TikTok page, and everybody's always telling her, "Oh, you need to make an OnlyFans." And Brianna's like, "No." And I'm not saying that everyone on OnlyFans is bad, but there are a lot of people on that who are using it, essentially prostituting themselves. And it's like, we really have to understand that it's not okay. Certainly not okay for a child of God. And we really need to love and support people who are involved in that, and not try to act like it's okay.
I'll say this, and if I think this is encouraging tonight. With this verse, he does say the word, God does. He does say the word daughters and the word sons.
Yes.
God is, you know, the Almighty, the Creator. But he's also a Heavenly Father. And I honestly think, and when you look at a verse like this, you should see him not just as the creator who sets the rules, but as a father who, yes, sets the rules, but
Mhm.
loves his kids, loves his children. And that's what it is. I think you brought it up, or you said it when you started, that the Lord just, as a father, he just, it grieves the heart of God when his children do wrong. It grieves the heart of God tonight.
Mhm.
If there's a husband and wife out there and you're not getting along,
Mhm.
that grieves the heart of God. If there's a parent and child tonight and you're not getting along, that grieves the heart of God.
Mhm.
If you're doing some sort of sin or something, you're engaged in some sort of sin and activity or something, a habit, and you know it's wrong, but you know what? God knows it's wrong.
Mhm.
And it hurts the heart of God.
Mhm.
God wants us to live right.
Mhm.
Yes, for his honor and glory, but also because he loves us.
Mhm.
He loves us so much he sacrificed and died for us, and he wants us to just live right, because another reason is because it's good for us.
Mhm.
Um, a woman who would have a lifestyle that of immorality,
Mhm.
unfaithful, all kinds of flesh and sensual sins and things. That's a hard road. I many times women get involved in things like that, and sometimes I think the media, online things, whatever, they like to promote the young girl and almost like she's healthy and
Mhm.
happy and
Mhm.
it's a great lifestyle.
Yep.
But what they don't show you and what Satan doesn't show you is a few years down the road, if she even makes it that far,
Yep.
uh, she may be in her late 20s looking like she's in her 50s and 60s. Not that there's anything wrong with being in your 50s and 60s, but what I'm saying is that you age quicker.
Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
hard life.
David, before he wasn't elderly, but he was holding on to sin with Bathsheba and everything, and he wrote a psalm, and in it he said that his bones waxed old.
Mhm.
While he before he got rid of his sin and repented of it and got right with God, he held it in, and his body got sick,
Mhm.
and his body aged because he was just hanging on to his sin.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people today possibly getting sick, and really their bodies are just giving out,
Mhm.
and it's for no other reason. They may go to the doctor and try to figure it out, but it's for no other reason than that they're hanging on to sin
Mhm.
and they won't let it go, and it's having its effect on the body.
Mhm.
I can't explain exactly how it works, but I know this. People talk about stress.
Mhm.
People that are stressed out, stress hurts the heart. It hurts all kinds of things. Well, one of the most stressful things that you can do is hang on to sin. Because as a believer, you're not right with God, and you're living a life that you shouldn't be living. And folks, that's a stressful thing.
We're in our early 40s, and at our 10-year high school reunion, you couldn't really tell much difference between everybody. But we're now past our 20 year, we're about at that 25-year reunion time, right? And there are some people who graduated high school with us. They still look like they're in their 20s. Rick and I do, except for a little gray, a few wrinkles. No, I was kidding. but but there are some people who we went to high school with that have chosen to live hard lives, and they look like they're our grandparents. And it's sad. It is really, really sad when you see them. And when you grow up with people and you go to school with them from kindergarten through 12th grade, by the time you talk, they feel like family.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's like you just wanna grab them and be like, why? No, don't do that. But people make choices, and it's just hard to see the consequences of those choices. And I think that's why the Lord's warning them here. He doesn't want, because we talked about choosing blessing and choosing cursing. someone who gets involved in this, they're just not choosing a blessed life.
No. And it's a sad thing. It's a tragic thing. And I'm going to say something.
Mhm.
All right. Couple of things. It talks about the sodomite. It talks about the whore here.
Mhm.
And there are other sins that we could even bring up.
Mhm.
But if there's someone out there tonight and you're like, my lifestyle is horrible.
Mhm.
And if there's someone out there and you're thinking, I know God is just disgusted by my lifestyle and it hurts his heart.
Mhm.
And I've hurt my testimony and I'm just a wretched person, a wreck. I want to say something, give you some hope tonight that if you've really hit rock bottom, the Lord can forgive.
He wants to.
Yes, the Lord forgives, he cleanses, and he can give you a whole new start, a whole new beginning. I mean, possibly. I mean, you'll still have to deal with some of the consequences of choices that you've made, but the difference is the Lord will be with you,
There's a peace.
and he can. Yes, yes. Given some time, the Lord can do all kinds of things that you can't imagine. My point is that if you're living a hard lifestyle tonight, don't continue.
No.
Honestly, make tonight the night that you stop and you say, "There's no life here. I'm wasting my life.
Yes.
I'm hurting my testimony. I'm hurting the people around me. I'm hurting my God, and I want to stop." And just stop. And you don't have to tell us about it. You don't have to put it in the chat or anything like that. Take it to God, and just you and God will get alone tonight and just tell him about it. And tell him that you want to give your life to him and recommit to him, and he'll take you up on it because he wants you. And another thing, for somebody out there, and maybe you're not indulging or having a lifestyle like we're talking about tonight. We're all, those of us that are believers, we are to be doing the work of the ministry.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if you're a pastor or not. You're still you're a Christian in this world, and you're to be salt and light, leading people to Christ, encouraging believers. Right.
Mhm.
My point is that you look around this world today, and there are all kinds of people having they're involved in all kinds of sex sins,
Mhm.
drug use, immorality, all kinds of just wickedness and darkness. And the sin makes us sick. It should.
Mhm.
And it does. I'll be honest with you. I am a firm believer in hate the sin, love the sinner.
Mhm.
Okay, but here's the thing: you can't get on a like a soapbox and start pointing the finger and looking down on people and judging them and saying, I'm glad I'm not like you.
Mm-mm.
There are a lot of believers out there, and they think they're doing the work of God by just pointing the finger and just, with a hateful attitude, rubbing people's nose in their sin. Sin should be preached about, and sin should be preached against.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan, or I'm not in agreement of people who try not to talk about sin, because people need to hear what sin is, before, conviction is good.
Yes.
It helps me get right with God when I hear what God hates.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm for preaching against sin,
Mhm.
but not in a judgmental way,
Mhm.
almost hoping that people stay in sin. In a loving way, we should not be judging people.
Mhm.
We should be trying to help people get on the good road, leading to heaven,
Mhm.
following the Lord,
Mhm.
or let me say like the high road,
Mhm.
helping people aim for the high road,
Mhm.
kind of thing. My point is tonight, when you see somebody and they're on rock bottom, they have sunk.
Mhm.
have compassion and pity.
Mhm.
You know, if there's any kind of like pride in your heart, like I would never,
Mhm.
ask the Lord for forgiveness. Seriously, because there should be no pride in the ministry. You know, ask the Lord for forgiveness and ask the Lord to help you to love people like he loves people, to see people in their need like he sees people in their need, and really seek to be a blessing and a help to people. You know, I'll get on my phone and I'll start seeing all the junk that goes on in this world
Mhm.
and how every single group in this world is fighting with every other group in this world. And nobody seems like they want to get along in 2021. Have you noticed that? I have.
Mhm.
Folks, rather than curse the darkness, let's start sharing the light with people and just point people to Christ. You say, well, they're all not going to get saved. They all won't get saved. I mean, the Bible even says that. But you know what? Some will. Some will. Some will get saved. Some will be encouraged. Some believers will be revived. And isn't that worth it? Redeeming the times, for the days are evil. Let's get busy redeeming the times, you know, and let's stop wasting time, wasting our life.
I'm going to move to the next section.
You let me go on and on and on there. So
No,
you know,
you were
okay.
you were 100% right.
Okay.
I'm gonna,
I wanted to finish the chapter, so I'll sit quietly for a moment.
you don't have to sit quietly. I'm going to the next section, and we're going to talk about lending things. So verse 19 and verse 20 basically talk about if you lend money to your brother, you don't charge him interest. You know, you don't charge him interest on money. You don't charge him interest on victuals, it says, or anything that's lent. No interest on anything. If you lend to a stranger, you can charge them interest, okay? Because they're a stranger, and if you want to give them money, they should pay you interest.
What's a victual?
Victual, usually it's referring to food.
I thought it was.
But I'd have to look up the actual Greek word to tell you what it is.
Because you know what I was thinking of? The preacher who saw the word victual, but he said victuals.
Oh, yeah.
He called them the victuals.
Yeah, you got me looking up the Greek. Yep, it is food.
Those victuals.
Yep. It's food.
That's Southern translation.
Anyway, it says under a stranger you can lend with interest, but to your brother you can't. And the reason why, it says that the Lord thy God may bless thee and all that thou settest thine hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it. So you just can't be greedy with your brother. You know, you got to treat your Christian family like you would want your own self to be treated. And so you don't charge them any extra. You just, if you want to loan it to them, great. Then they'll pay you back, but they don't have to pay you any interest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I like it. I think it's good. I think it's just God's trying to help people to see that they just need to get along and treat each other better than we would in
I think he's just trying to keep it simple, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know,
you don't have to try to make money off everything, you know.
But my point is that people would, if the Lord didn't step in and say don't.
Mm-hmm. They absolutely would.
You know, there are. I always say to people today, but there were people back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Judas, he cared about the dollar.
Always about the money.
So it's good that God steps in and tells us things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every time God talks about money or something like this in the Bible, sometimes people get kind of, you know, there are people that just don't talk to me about money. But seriously, we can't take advantage of our anybody really, but especially the children of God.
Verse 21 through 23 talks about our commitments to the Lord. So when thou shalt vow a vow, thou shalt not slack to pay for it. Mm-hmm. For the Lord will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. So it says, so if you're gonna make a commitment to the Lord, you better do it, because he will require it of you. It's your job. But then verse 22 says, but if you forbear to vow, like if you choose not to make a vow, there's no sin in that. You don't have to, you're not required to make a vow, right? But But if you make one, you got to keep it. It says, that which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt keep and perform. Even a free will offering. Remember, there were some offerings they were required and some that they weren't required. But if you commit yourself to a free will offering, then guess what? Now it's required because you committed yourself to it. But the whole idea is once you've made a commitment, you have to keep it. Period. You don't have to. But if you make it, you do. A lot of people talk about this with marriage and divorce and all of that. Because that's one of the vows that people make. You're vowing before the Lord within your marriage. And so this is exactly that. You don't have to get married. Nothing here says you are required to get married.
Mm-hmm.
But once you vow the vow, you are required to keep it. He will require it of you. All right. That's just one example. But anything that you commit to the Lord, and I think a lot of people make foolish vows to the Lord. Lord, if you do this, I will go to church every single Sunday for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't have to do that.
Yeah. And do you realize if you do that and then you don't, it's sin.
It's sin to you. That's right.
So I honestly think that sometimes we do things because we're not as studied up in the Bible as we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we just don't know, or we haven't studied enough, or we forget.
I think people just don't take it seriously.
I
don't think it's a big deal.
The Bible even talks about a fool,
mm-hmm.
and it says that a fool, I'm trying to remember exactly, uttereth his whole mind,
mm-hmm.
or whatever. The idea that you don't filter anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you think it, you blurt it out and you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible says that a fool does that.
Mm-hmm.
A wise man will get a thought and he'll wonder, is this a helpful thought? Is this a godly thought? Is this one that edifies? Do I need to say this?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any value in saying it?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. He'll think about it before he says it. You know, that's a wise person. But a fool will just, blurt out. Do you know folks that are like that? We all do. And sometimes we're like that. If we're honest, we just go and go and go. And then we think, wow, we shouldn't have, said that. Well, why couldn't I just be quiet? I've had a lot of times like that in my life where I'm like, if I could have changed it, I wouldn't have said a word.
Like when you used to tell me to make plans, you're like, we should have dinner.
That's a good example.
We told you guys about that when Rick first got saved and was in church. Like he would tell everybody, he was trying to be friendly in church, and he'd tell everybody, he'd be like, "Yeah, it's great. We should have dinner sometime. Let's plan that." And the other people would be excited. They'd be like, "Yeah, let's have dinner. Let's do that."
Church people are dinner people. They love it.
And then we'd leave church. I was trying
to be folksy and friendly.
We'd leave church, and he'd look at me and say, "Get us out of it."
Yeah.
You're the one who said it.
See, I was shy.
I'm not getting out of it.
And I was taking baby steps. I was just trying to get good at the greeting and the folksy back and forth. Hello, how's it going and everything. And everybody liked dinner. So I would always say, let's have dinner. But everybody would take me up on it. Well, sure. And I'm like, oh. Because they would want a day, what about Thursday? I'm not like,
yeah, get with my wife on that. And then he'd be like, get me out of
it. Yeah. Because I'm thinking dinner, like, sometime before, the Lord calls us home, but sometime maybe this year, not next week. But, you have to be careful when you go and you make commitments.
I didn't get him out of it. I told him if he made it, we're going.
We had a lot of dinners, but the Lord used that to get me out of my shell. Yeah, and to teach me to think before I speak.
Yeah, don't say it every time because you're going to be going to a lot of dinners.
Because you get a vow. A vow, it's more than just a regular. I'm going to do something. It is a very high level of commitment. It's a vow, much like a wedding vow. You're making a pledge. Mm-hmm. You are vowing with your whole heart something. Mm-hmm. When you vow a vow to the Lord, you don't have to. Mm-hmm. But if you do, especially folks here in Deuteronomy, they were obligated to honor that vow. Okay, or else it was sin.
Mhm.
Okay. So number one, we need to take our commitments seriously, because God makes them serious, or takes them seriously. And we really need to be careful and think about what we are committing.
Mhm.
Many times, many people go to church, many pastors preach messages. Many times, if you've been to regular Bible preaching churches, a pastor will preach a message, and then they'll have a time of an invitation.
Mhm.
At the end of a service, there'll be a time for prayer. There'll be a time for believers that just listen to the sermon to pray and to talk to God and make some commitments.
Mhm.
And I've been guilty of this, so I'm not pointing fingers. I'm pointing it at myself, maybe. You hear a sermon, it really gets to you, and you may, in the moment, make commitments to the Lord. Lord, you got my attention. I'm never doing this again. I'm gonna stop doing this. And then sometime between leaving that auditorium, walking down the sidewalk to the car, you've gone and forgotten the whole thing. When we make commitments to the Lord, we need to honor them. We need to honor them. It doesn't make us more saved.
No.
It just makes us obedient,
Mhm.
following the God that saved us in step with him and obedience to him, following his will.
All right. Well, and by the way, he doesn't mind dinners now. It was just right back then. He never did it.
I
so he
love
wasn't used
dinners
to it.
now.
Yeah. Now he loves.
Let's
it.
have dinner. I'm Southern now. Let's have supper. Let's have supper. What do you think?
Anyway. All right. So speaking of which, this is hospitality related. This last section says, when you come to your neighbor's vineyard, you can eat his grapes at your own pleasure, but you can't fill any vessel. When you come to their corn, you can pluck their ears with your hand, but you can't move a sickle under your neighbor's corn. So the idea is that, if you were to go to your neighbor's house, you could go eat whatever you wanted out of their field or their vineyard, whatever they got, but you can't go and gather it like it's yours, and you can't go take they call it a sickle. You can't go harvest their field. They've grown that's theirs. You can go if you're there. It'd be kind of like in modern times. If you come to my house to visit, you can go in any of my pantry you want and get yourself whatever you want to make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You do it. You don't need you don't have to ask my permission. I don't care. If you're a guest in my house, any snacks you want, anything that's in this house, you are welcome to. But what you cannot do is come to my house every week with a grocery bag and go shop through my pantry because that's what we feed our family with, right? So this is exactly that same thing. You should be willing to share with your neighbors, and they should be willing to share with you if you're, at their place or they're at your place. If I got stuff I'd be like, hey, you want something from the garden? Whatever you want, go grab something. But they can't go harvest your whole garden like it's theirs. You know what I mean? So these are the boundaries,
In all honesty, it's just plain rude.
Yeah.
And in the South, you'll get a broom upside your head, or possibly even get shot. You don't raid the refrigerator week after week, kind of deal. You treat your neighbor right, is what I'm saying.
You took it to a whole different.
Yeah, loving your neighbor is not just saying it. Love your neighbor.
Yes.
Love your neighbor. It is so easy to say it.
Yes.
People can look at me and say, I love you. I'm like, all right, but you never. How do you show it? Mm-hmm. How do you show it? How do I show it? We can say the word all day long, but showing it is something different. Mm-hmm. Christ will say it, but he also shows it.
Mm-hmm. You have to be hospitable, but people can't take advantage. That's what I get out of it.
There's a neat thought there. The Lord is really taking care of both sides of this thing. Mm-hmm. He's looking at the one that owns the house and saying, if you're going to obey me, if you're going to please me, honor me, and be Christ-like, you're going to be hospitable. Mm-hmm. But then he's also looking at the guest and saying, if you're going to honor me, don't take advantage of his hospitality.
Yes.
So both parties have to play by the rules. Mm-hmm. if they're going to obey the Lord and be blessed. Mm-hmm. Or you get a broom upside your head. I'm
If
done
I
with
could
that.
just snip that out.
I know it.
I really think he does that just to provoke me. Alrighty. Hey, you thought we were done with controversial subjects. No. Tomorrow we're going to talk about divorce. So just a heads up there. But hey, we finished 23 and I'm very excited about that. And tomorrow we got a lot to talk about. We'll probably have a couple of days of Deuteronomy 24 as well. But continuing here with Moses.
Okay.
Well, if you're ready, we can pray.
All right, let's pray. Lord, thank you for tonight. And thank you for time that we can get together and talk about your word. And I pray that you're really challenging us tonight, and you're really meeting with each and every one of us personally. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the change and the difference that Christ makes. Lord, help us to love our neighbors like we're supposed to. Help us not just to say the words and just to be religious or anything like that, but really do a work in our heart so we love people the way you love people. Help us to truly be like our Savior. And we'll thank you so much for that. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I enjoyed your prayer tonight. All right. Well, tomorrow, talk about divorce and remarriage. If you have any questions on that, we get asked about that a lot. Tomorrow, we'll read about it in God's Word.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, that's it. You all have a great night. Thank you for joining us. Come back tomorrow, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Bye. Enjoy your Sunday.